The last piece of this censorship three-headed monster is the Online Harms Bill, originally introduced as Bill C-36, but it is yet to be reintroduced under this parliament. This is really dangerous stuff. This might be, as a matter of fact, the most destructive piece of legislation on the freedoms of Canadians as we know it. The Liberal government have no problem telling the world that they plan to do this. If you go to their website right now, you'll see this exactly. Going back to this benign or dangerous conversation, this is how the Liberals try to talk about the Online Harms Bill. Within its first 100 days to combat serious forms of harmful online content, specifically hate speech, terrorist content, content that incites violence, child sexual abuse material, and the non-consensual distribution of intimate images, this would make sure that social media platforms and other online services are held accountable for the content that they host. This legislation will recognize the importance of freedom of expression for all Canadians and will take a balanced and targeted approach to tackle extreme harmful speech. Whenever the government tells you they are concerned about preserving your rights and freedoms, that is when you know to have your guard up seriously and really be paying attention. Now, the Canadian Constitution Foundation sees this bill much differently than the Liberal government does, of course. I'm not going to read all of this, but I want to highlight just some parts of this. This was their press release when the bill was introduced back in 2021. This legislation will impact the ability of Canadians to engage in debate on subjects that are unsettled, giving government and unelected tribunal bureaucrats even greater control over Canadians' expression will erode our fundamental rights, which have already been struck a serious blow by Bill C-10, which is Bill C-11. While hate speech is abhorrent and must be condemned, Bill C-36 will cause a whole new set of harms. The balance is all wrong, and this legislation should be rethought entirely. Now, before I go to digital ID, I want to just give some more context into Bill C-36. Both the Canadian Constitution Foundation and the Liberal government and the Liberal Party in this instance haven't really told you what this is all about. Bill C-36, if someone, this is how it play out. If you engage in what someone else determines to be hateful content or any online speech that is deemed to incite or foment hatred of a certain group or an individual, that grieved individual can file a complaint with the Canadian Human Rights Commission. In that instance, which we all know the Canadian Human Rights Commission are completely neutral arbiters and they would never be extremely biased to one side, of course. In that instance, someone who has just written a comment on Facebook or written a tweet or done anything at all digitally, and they are accused of parroting this hate speech, that person will be hauled in front of a human rights tribunal and potentially forced to pay a major fine. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars here if this legislation goes through. And in particular, the Liberal government will want to tell you that this is about holding social media platforms accountable for hate and not actually targeting the individual, not targeting Canadians' freedoms. That's not accurate at all. This is about making sure that Canadians are not able to debate, as the Canadian Constitution Foundation says, unsettled topics. In your mind, I'm sure you can imagine right now how this would play out. For example, what would happen back during the Freedom Convoy if C-36 was in place? What would happen if throughout this entire year if C-36 was in place? Many of you would be unable to say the things you're currently able to say online because the harms and the punishment would be immense. It would be severe. You can imagine the effect this would have on free speech in Canada is substantial. So that's really the three-headed monster of what we're seeing with online censorship. C-11, C-18, and the yet to be reintroduced C-36, the Online Harms Bill. The danger of this is immense. It truly is. And anyone who's paying attention, groups like this and other groups and journalists should be paying attention to this as much as they can and really doing as much as they can to stop it from happening.